Hey, what's going on everyone? Justin again. As always, thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about mastering the upsell techniques, things that I've learned along the way and experience from just working on cars in general that's going to help you to learn how to master the upsell and how exactly you can go about that if you've never heard of the upsell process before. So let's dive into it. First of all, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. So cheers to those of you that have your beers. I hope you and your family have a super awesome turkey day. I'm grateful for a lot of things. I really am. So thanks to you guys. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your Thanksgiving with your family and friends. All right, getting right into it. What is an upsell? A few different videos I've seen throughout the past, and none of them really seem to really dive down deep and explain it. So what an upsell means to me is it's something that the customer was unaware of at the time that they brought their vehicle in for service that they could actually need, or it could just be an extra added benefit. Benefit for who though? Benefit for the customer, benefit for the dealership, or benefit for the indie shop, depending on how you want to look at it. Let's get down to the brass tacks of things. So an upsell in the dealership realm would be like, vehicle comes in for an oil change. You go through, maintenance wise, you don't see anything wrong with it. No oil leaks, no nothing, nothing's really out of the ordinary. What could you potentially look for to potentially upsell the customer to gain more money for the shop or produce more hours as a mechanic or technician? So a vehicle comes in, has no other service, needs immediately, and immediate needs. Things at the dealership that we were taught to try to upsell were like flushes. Hey, your brake fluid is, it's got, 3 or 4% condensation in it compared to the actual fluid itself. There's a tester for it. You put it in, tells you 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% being the worst. This is how much, the boiling point has been reached, to where the point is that now you have 4% or more of water accumulated within the system. Also, you can say that the brake fluid is dark and presents an oily color, in which case you might want to flush that fluid out because some kind of contaminant got in there. However it got there, it seems to be a mystery. I think it stems from people using random funnels for multiple different services, and those oils and those detergents get mixed in with the .3, and that's what causes that fluid to change color. It's just a thought process that I have. I have no factorial proof behind that. But that's one scenario. Other things would be like, okay, so they're at 60 to 80,000 miles. Has the customer been coming to our shop multiple times? If they have, and they have a routine service history with us, when was the last time they did a transmission fluid and filter service? Or when was the last time they did a transmission flush? So you might try to sell a flush or the fluid and filter service based on mileage. Another upsell technique that we would use would be OE over 50K. OE over 50K means original equipment over 50,000 miles. At that point, it's kind of game on. OE over 50K for shocks, struts, could be tune-up, things like that. So that way you can kind of bring those things up. Now they have better and better spark plugs, and some of these spark plugs can go up to almost 100,000 miles before they even need to be serviced. So that might not be an upsell technique anymore, whereas before you had to gap them and everything wasn't quite set. Now everything is, I forget what it's called, is it platinum plug or something like that, where it's got a very sharp tip and you don't have to adjust gap or anything, it's already preset. So you don't have to do those ones nearly as often, but back in the day, you had to, request to re-gap or change plugs, and they gave you another option there to where you can pull the plug and look at it and see, are the valve seals, holding up, or is it burning oil? Things like that. Is it burning too rich? Is it, leaning out? So it gave you other ideas for potential upsells to say, hey, this is what we noticed when we pulled your plugs. It might be something to consider looking at. Let's take a look. So that might be another little upsell. You don't really do that too much with plugs nowadays though. Other upsell techniques would be like rear differential flush, front differential flush, things that don't require you to necessarily remove the pumpkin shell from the actual differential. Now, if it's a leak, it's not really an upsell, but it's a suggested maintenance repair. So at that point in time, you're like, hey, rear differential presents sign of leakage. We should try to repair that. Now they came in for an oil change. I didn't know about that. So that could be an upsell because you're presenting information that the customer was unaware of at the time, and now they're being made aware of it. So a little bit different of an upsell. Not so much okay, couldn't find any work, so I'm trying to make work from no work, to, okay, this is what it actually needs. So now at this point, you're going through the actual needs of the vehicle to try to benefit the customer and help your hours with the upsell. So you're like, okay, rear differential's leaking, maybe the oil pan gasket's leaking, maybe the rear main's leaking, maybe the right rear shock is leaking. Now an upsell tactic to the shocks and struts is, if one's leaking, it's always best to replace in pairs. So you're upselling the other one. Not necessary, but it's always strongly encouraged that if you do one, you might as well go ahead and do the other. Take into consideration how much an actual shock or strut might cost. Maybe the shock only costs 50 or 60 bucks. Damn it, cigarette went out. Maybe it only costs 50 or 60 bucks. The other one might cost 50 or 60 bucks. And that's 120 bucks plus labor. They might charge 1 or 2 hours labor. So that's like 200 or 300 bucks. But if they only needed the one, this is the difference between independent shops and dealerships. If the customer can't afford both, but they can afford the one that's broken, they might decide to fix the one that's actually leaking or broken and then come back later when it's more affordable to take care of the other one. It's always recommended to replace in pairs, but at some point in time, you have to try to figure out what's best for the customer at the end of the day. Dealerships don't think like that. Replace in pairs. They're always going to try to sell the other one with it. Because they're like, well, the other one could go any minute, so forth and so forth. Scare tactics. Scare tactics can work too. Not a good idea if you're trying to create a very respectable and valued business. You don't want to scare the shit out of the customer, but you want to be real with them at the same exact time. So I had a customer the other day, he actually asked me personally, when I was taking a look at his, he had a noise complaint, and it was coming from one of the pulleys. I believe it was a tensioner. The tensioner was making a lot of noise. So I took the belt off and was able to spin the tensioner pulley, and you can hear that the bearing was shot. You can actually physically move it back and forth. He goes, best case, worst case scenario, go. I was like, okay, if you want my brunt, just absolute blunt honesty about best case, worst case. Best case, you get another week or two out of it, make a little bit of money, come on back to the shop, replace it, nothing bad happens, everything's great, no big deal. I said, but your belt's also presenting signs of wear. Worst case scenario, either the pulley completely fails, falls off, slings the belt starts flopping around, gets torn up because it's caught in between pulleys, and it tears up the AC system, which could puncture one of those hoses. It could also tear up power steering hoses. It could tear up fan shroud. You could be looking almost $1,000 or more in possible repairs. That's worst case. Best case, you come back, it's all fixed for, a fraction of the cost. So it's whatever you want to do. I can't tell you how long it's going to last because vehicles are like people. I mean, through the years, wear and tear, it's just a matter of time. Am I right? So, at any rate, scare tactics do kind of work, but you don't want to push the envelope too much. Be real. Just, don't be fake with it. Be real with it, but try not to scare the bejesus out of them either. Same exact thing goes with like stuff when it comes to brakes. Hey, when you have like 3 or 4 millimeter, like, look, yeah, your brake pads are getting very low. You should consider changing them. I would advise you to change them as soon as possible, but you could get, possibly, a month, 3 months, whatever down the road. I don't know what your financial standpoint is. It might be able to, you might be able to get a little bit of time out of it. I wouldn't go too much. If you start hearing some coarse grinding, I would definitely bring it right in and just know you need to do it. Other circumstances, they're just like, hey, you know what? If that's how low they are, let's just go ahead and do it. Other times when it's metal to metal, it becomes a liability. That vehicle leaves the shop with those pads being completely metal to metal, and they're starting to dig into the backing plate. There's no stopping force behind that. And I'm sure there's got to be a law behind it about that vehicle being on the road. So it's a liability to not just the shop to let the vehicle go and be driven again. They have to advise the customer that it is unsafe to drive. Customer has to sign said waiver, and at that point, it's on them, and hopefully the liability of the shop has been released thus because of the waiver. So at that point in time, when it gets down to that, most customers are pretty willing to just leave the vehicle there, get a ride from somebody else, and have the work done. Not a bad idea, especially if you know that it could be a safety hazard to everyone else around you on the road. So, another portion of that upsell part. Some other things that you might consider when actually trying to sell work is, I've noticed, mechanics are oftentimes a little bit too scared to sell work. I've seen techs that are like, I'm like, dude, why didn't you mention the rear main? Or why didn't you mention this? Or why didn't you mention that? And I'll actually ask them because I might have to go over there and give them a hand. Now, this was when I was at the dealership level. I don't really see it a lot at our shop. Our shop, everyone's just like, boom, we're on it. We annotate everything. But I've seen some guys that were actually like too scared to annotate work because they were afraid they were going to get trapped with that. And I'm like, dude, we're trying to help make the shop money. If the vehicle needs it, if it has a rear main seal leak and you're a lube tech, chances are they're not going to stick you in replacing that rear main seal. They're going to pass it off to the heavy line guy to have him do it. So don't be afraid to sell the work, and don't be afraid to dive into something new. So if it's a power steering pump or something on a Euro car and you've never done one before, but you know that the pump's gone out and it's leaking and whatever else, don't be afraid to jump right into it. Just be like, hey, power steering pump's leaking. You put it on the paperwork, customer approves work, now you have to do the work. Okay, how do you take it apart? Well, that's when you go to the service information, you start looking stuff up, maybe you pull up a YouTube video, or like me, maybe you just dive right into it. Stick your hands in there, start removing stuff, getting stuff out of your way so you can actually see where the fasteners are, what's holding it on, what hose clamps are in the way, and start moving stuff out of your way and get the job done. Guys, it's not as scary as it looks, and I can say that because when I was younger, yeah, I was afraid of a lot of different jobs that would come in. When I saw a diesel or a Euro car, I would just be like cringing, just like, oh God, I hope to God that doesn't come to me. Nowadays, I'm like, yeah, rock and roll, whatever, let's get it done, you know? Just tell me what to replace and I'll freaking dive right in. So, way different mentality nowadays than I had before. Before in the past, man, I would just cringe. You can ask almost anybody. I was just like, there was certain work that I just didn't want. I'd be like, hey man, I'm not good at that shit. I don't want to do that shit. Like, I would always try to put it off and not want to do it. Nowadays, I take whatever I can get. I want to funnel work in. I want to funnel work out. I want to try to do the best quality work that I possibly can as fast as I possibly can so that the shop's making money and the customer's happy and they want to come back. Customers want to come back when you take care of them. There are other things that some shops will do as an incentive to keeping that customer. Maybe they changed light bulbs out or tail light bulbs out or turn signal light bulbs out for free. Maybe then when it comes to a drive belt condition and they're in there for an oil service, they'll sell the drive belt, but they don't charge you the labor portion. So there's certain things that certain businesses and certain establishments will do to try to make it a little bit easier for the customer and also still get the work sold so that way the customer is driving on the road safer, they feel more confident in that shop, they feel confident in the abilities of the mechanics of the shop, the company's still making money, even if they have to make a small percentage on the back end when it comes to selling parts, whatever the case may be. It's all about like the quality of work and the expedience of work, but then at the same exact time, don't let the unknown be unknown. Make sure that whatever you see, you annotate, you document, you make sure the customer's aware of potential problems that could come up in the future. If you see an issue or whatever, make sure you annotate it. They might not know about it. I had a customer that came in today, said, hey, I don't know, I got a grinding from the right rear wheel. Can you take a look at it? Took it around the block, took it for a test drive. I'm like, yep, definitely it's coming from there, no problem. Put it in the air. Took the wheels off. Yep. Drum shoes were gone. Absolutely gone. Digging into the metal, cutting up the inside of that drum. The drum was beyond its turnable limit. Done. Front rotors and brake pads. What's wrong with them? Don't know until you take a wheel off. Customer didn't come in for that. But I still took the wheels and tires off, made it a point to take a look at them. And thank God I did. The inner pads are worn out, metal to metal, also on the brake pad. But they were not making nearly as much noise as the ones in the back. Annotated it. We had like an hour left of work. And customer's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And can you also please throw in an oil change? So between three of us, we just started smashing on this truck and we got it in and out of the shop. Customer got brand new front brakes, brand new rear brakes, and he got an oil change service, set the tire pressure, topped off all fluids, checked everything else out, and he was good to go. So that customer will definitely be back, and I'm sure he's ecstatic that we were able to get it done in the time frame that he needed, because he needed his vehicle back tonight, because he had Thanksgiving plans with his family. And I'm glad that we were able to do that, because it was the end of the day, and no shops were really taking him in, and we took him in, and we were able to get it done. So, just the way that it goes. Don't be afraid of the upsell. Learn to master the upsell. Learn to look through your, there's a checkoff sheet on all data. There's checkoff sheets on ShopKey Pro, Identifix. Your shop, if you're a Chrysler dealer or you work at a Ford dealer, if you go underneath the vehicle maintenance schedule and you look at the mileage markers, it'll tell you what you should recommend at what mileage. Start going through that. Make your recommendations off of that. If there's nothing to do to the vehicle, base your recommendations off of that list. Then from there, let it be up to the customer. Because if there's nothing physically wrong with their car, doesn't fall within the maintenance schedule, then you can push it in and out. But don't just rush the car in and rush the car out and try to ignore all the things that could be going on with their car or what they could potentially be looking for. Customers want to know, when's the timing belt going to be due? When's this going to be due? They want to know that stuff. So share that information. That's all I got for this video, guys. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. I know it was kind of a long video. I appreciate you guys. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Deuces.